170 years ago, a young man sailed through these heads and into Sydney Harbour. He was halfway around the world on an epic 5-year journey. He was only 25 years old, but already he had the makings of a huge idea. And it was an idea that would come to terrify him, because he knew this idea would demote humanity from believing we're made in the image of a god to being just a charming ape. What he didn't know was that this theory would make him the most controversial scientist in history. His name was Charles Darwin. My name is Chris Darwin. I'm an ordinary person, but I just so happen to be the great-great-grandson of Charles Darwin. 2009 just so happens to be the 150th anniversary of the publication of The Origin of the Species, and also the 200th anniversary of the birth of Charles Darwin. I am going to go and see the seminal locations in Charles's life. I'm going to see the beautiful animals and the spectacular landscapes that so inspired him. But more than that, I want to get inside Charles's head to understand how he came up with so many theories. I would like to meet the people who have been impacted by Charles, the creationists, the scientists, the politicians, the person on the street, to find out what people actually think about Charles Darwin. Charles was a fit young man, and while he was scrambling around the mountains of the world, he must have been thinking not only about the adaptations of all the other animals, but also about himself, the human animal. And he would never have dared articulate it. But I wonder whether he did contemplate things like these beautiful hands that humans have, and whether he did notice and think about that there are other animals with very similar hands, and I wonder whether he was contemplating whether we might be related. Here I am, abseiling down, using some pretty high-tech equipment, but the question is, of course, are we an ape? Did we once live in the trees? And why do we come down to the ground and stand upright? What do you think? Do you think we are an ape which came down from the trees? Well, let's go and find out.
I don't know, I can't answer that personally, but probably descendants from other human beings, but like just getting advanced and stuff. I don't think we're directly from apes, no.
So have you heard of evolution?
Yeah, what the apes and the man,
right, yeah.
Evolution. Yeah. I don't know.
Does that work for you? Not really?
I don't know, there's too much out there.
Yeah, if definitely if you're related to the theory of evolution, it would have to seem that we did come from apes, and yeah.
From Adam and Eve.
So from God, made in the image of a god.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether we could ask your views on Charles Darwin. Never heard of him. Never heard of him, okay. He was a man who came up with a theory called evolution.
Okay.
Which was, some people think we're made in the image of a god, and he thought that we originated from apes.
I'll go with the evolution.
Do you think your great ancestors many times removed were apes, or do you think you were made in the image of a god?
Probably the ape one.
I'll just sit on the fence, really.
I don't believe that there was a god. We've just evolved from molecules, basically, through evolution, just to adapt to the world.
I think I'd go with the scientific theory of the apes. Yes, because we are really similar to them. So I would go for this one, definitely.
I'm sort of a religious person, so I sort of buy the creationist point of view, but I don't think that's a direct dichotomy from, I don't think that's in direct opposition to evolution either.
I tend to agree with him on that. I'm conflicted between
religious teachings and what science kind of tells me. So I think ultimately we have evolved in some way, but not quite sure how. I'm not quite sure. You know, Adam and Eve may have more resembled more primitive man than we do today, but so I've sort of resolved it at that point and then let it go with that and worried about, you know, here and now and what I do.
Oh, look
I look at how they're using tools over there, Alex. Very good. Yep. Okay.
Charles challenged the belief that we are made in the image of a God and instead offered the notion that we are nothing more than a charming, naked ape. His idea of the theory of evolution suggested that we are in fact distant relatives of the chimpanzee, and when you have a look at them you can see the resemblances are more than passing.
See yourself there?
Yeah.